Hey, welcome to another video. Colby here. I'm in Northwest Arkansas at Devil's Den State Park, and I thought it'd be fun to show you my Starlink camping setup. So basically how I set up Starlink, how I use Starlink when I'm doing camping trips like this one. I have a 13-foot Scamp travel trailer that I use, and I have a standard Starlink unit. So I thought I'd just bring you along for the journey on how I set up my Starlink, how I select a location. I have everything connected in the Scamp here. So let's start by going inside and looking at my router and power supply setup. Okay, so inside the Scamp 13, very small space, but plenty of room for Starlink, for storing Starlink, and then of course the router power supply. I've actually got it tucked away quite neatly down here. So let's take a look at the router and the power supply for my Starlink unit first here. So I have, as you can see right here, a Gen 3 router. I've got it mounted on Starlink's router mount. Got it just mounted to the side of this inner cabinet here. And then, as you can see, I don't have a traditional Gen 3 power supply. I've actually got my Starlink running off of DC. And I did that with this right here. This is the Dishy No AC from a company called Starv Mount. And the Dishy No AC is a DC conversion for the standard Starlink dish. And basically what that means is I can hook this power supply directly up to my battery system, which is a 12-volt system here in the Scamp, and it powers the dish directly off of DC. So I eliminate that extra conversion step using the Starlink power supply that's included in the kit. So this runs it directly off of the 12-volt system here. And I did this for two reasons. First reason is because I actually don't have an inverter here in the Scamp. So I don't have a way to plug into a standard wall outlet if I'm not tied to shore power. And then the second reason is it's more power efficient. So I can save about 10% of the energy use of the Starlink by just eliminating that unnecessary AC to DC conversion that happens with the standard Starlink power supply. So this is the Dishy No AC. Got it connected here to the router, and then the Starlink cable is right here, and it actually is routed back underneath. Let me just take this bench seat up. So the first thing that I'll do, I've got my 50-foot Starlink cable. This is the default cable that's included in the kit. I've got it coiled up back here. And as far as passing it through the wall of the RV, I actually just use the pass-through that's already there for my main electrical hookup. So I will just take the cable, push it on through, and then I'll go outside and pull as much cable as I need back through. But before we do that, before we go outside and pull the cable, let's get the dish out. So the dish I just keep stored underneath this other bench while I'm in transport. And the Generation 3 dish, the standard dish, is a perfect form factor for that. It's very low profile, actually fits perfectly. This is where my fresh water tank is. So it just kind of sits on top of the fresh water tank. So I have the Gen 3 standard dish, and then the way I mount it for camping, I use the Starlink accessory. It's called the standard X-frame base, which is also stored underneath here. Fits perfectly. But if this looks familiar, it's because it's basically the same X-frame base as the older Starlink units. It just allows me to get the Gen 3 dish off the ground, makes it a little bit cleaner, easier to keep leaves off of it, keep dirt off of it, that sort of thing. Okay, so as far as site selection, I don't really take into account my campsite when I'm setting up Starlink. In other words, I try to pick this site with the most trees, with the most shade, with the most distance between other people. So I don't really consider Starlink when I'm selecting the site. So as you can see here, we're in Northwest Arkansas, Devil's Den State Park. A lot of trees, not a lot of clearing. So this is not going to be a great place for Starlink, but as I'll show you, it can still work great. So I went ahead and picked a spot just about 40 feet away from my site here in this little clearing. This is about the most amount of clear sky as I can reasonably get. So I'm going to set up my Starlink right here. So I haven't pulled the cable out yet, but I'm going to set the dish down and then go ahead and get the cable from my travel trailer. Okay, so as you can see here, I just reused this existing pass-through that has my main electrical connection. And I'm just going to pull out the amount of Starlink cable that I need. Trying not to bend the cable and damage it too much. That should be good. Okay. Now let's route the cable over to where I've decided to set up the dish. So just about the perfect length here. I've actually got to move it over just a little bit. Now, I've never really felt the need for the longer cable as I'm camping. You can typically find a pretty decent spot within 50 feet of your campsite. So with this standard X-frame base, what I need to do first is route the cable through the little mast here. And then once I do that, I can plug it in. And then this snaps into place. And then I can set the dish into the X-frame base. And now we're connected. So what I want to do here is aim the dish as much to the open sky as I can. So I'm just going to do it about like that. That should be good. And I don't pay any attention to the Starlink app or where it tells you to aim, because really what I need to do is just aim it at as much open sky as I can. Okay, so I plugged in the Starlink, and I don't remember if I mentioned this already, but the cable that goes from this utility area, I just routed it through the cabinet here, and then it plugs into the other end of the Starlink cable plugs into the dishy no AC. So that delivers power. So as you can see now, I've got the blue light indicating that this has power, and I've got the white light on the router. So we are establishing a connection. Let's check the Starlink app. And as you can see, I'm connected to my Wi-Fi network now, and the dish is calculating orientation. So we'll give it a few minutes to boot up, and then we'll see what we got going on as far as the obstructions, speed tests, that sort of thing. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes. I've let the Starlink fully boot up. So you may be wondering, you know, with these kind of conditions, I think most people would assume that Starlink doesn't work at all here. Tons of tree cover. I barely have any open sky for my Starlink, but actually it works quite well. So although I took it down and set it back up for this video and demonstration, I've been here for a couple days, and I've had Starlink in this position using it for the past several days. And so if you take a look at the Starlink app, you can kind of see more about how it performs. So if I go into the statistics, you can see I've got quite a bit of recent interruptions, and that's expected due to all the trees that are obstructing Starlink's view. If I go into ping success, you can see I've been at around a 91% success rate as far as pinging the internet. But that's not the full story. If we go into outages, you can see a little bit more. You can see every couple of minutes, every 2 to 5 minutes, I have 5 to 10 seconds of interruptions. So although this setup right here is not going to work great for things like online gaming, video calls, or Wi-Fi calling, really anything that uses live data, it works fine for basic internet access. So for example, at this campground, you can book a reservation up to a year in advance. So I actually did that through the Starlink connection. I booked my trip for next year. I always come here in the fall. Other things you can do, download trail maps. So GPS data, for example, for the trails that I hike in this area, I can download while I'm at my campsite. I also can stream TV shows and movies. Last night we streamed a Hulu movie using this exact setup right here with the trees and obstructions and everything. And although it did buffer a few times, I made it through, an hour-and-a-half movie with just those few interruptions. It worked fine during this setup with all these trees and everything for basic internet activities. So again, not for things like video calls or video meetings, video conferences, that sort of thing, but it'll work fine for basic internet access if you're just a recreational traveler. And of course, you can also, if you're really that concerned about Starlink and the performance, you can just pick a site that has less trees, better open sky. Speaking of obstructions, so here's what the obstruction map looks like. Even with all of the trees surrounding me, I still got a decent area where I can get a signal from. And let's go ahead and run a quick speed test as well, just to show you the performance of a Starlink in this configuration. This is on the Roam Unlimited plan, by the way, so the speeds aren't going to be that great, especially when you have obstructions like this. And I've also noticed the latency is a little bit higher. As you can see right in here, we got 75 milliseconds of latency and only about 12 megabits per second down, 2.9 megabits per second up. Let's go ahead and run that again just to make sure that wasn't a fluke. And yeah, there we go. So it must have been obstructed during that part of it. So now we're getting much higher download speeds, still the same latency, much higher upload speeds. So with Roam, it kind of depends on, when you run your speed test, time of day, your location. But obviously when you have trees like this, that can affect things as well. So decent performance. Like I said before, overall really happy with this setup and how it works. Works great for most internet activities. So not too bad when you consider all of the trees and everything that are blocking the view of the dish. So thank you for watching. That's all I wanted to share with you today, is just my camping setup with Starlink, how I use it when I'm doing my camping trips with my Scamp travel trailer over there. If you have any questions about anything in my setup, or you have any, if you'd like tips or tricks on how to use it while camping, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. But until then, we'll see you in the next video.